if you follow the auto industry, you're probably aware that Nissan is, and Infiniti, I'll jumble them together, is in desperate need of sales. Most of their models are not doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And if you take away all the, I don't want to use fluff, but I almost just did, so I just did. The Rogue is the one that is keeping the lights on over at Nissan. Nissan tried to capitalize on the interest with SUVs by introducing the Kicks and the Qashqai. And despite the fact that they were actually good products, they didn't exactly generate the success and sales numbers that they were supposed to create. In fact, you probably know this as well. The Qashqai has now left North America, now reserved for other markets, including Europe. But Nissan has obviously not given up on the small SUV segment, because now they've introduced the all-new second generation Nissan Kicks. And to put it succinctly, they've done exactly everything they were supposed to do, and they've done it right. I'm not going to sell you the punchline right away, but with a new platform, more powerful engine, bigger overall dimensions, and a really impressive ride, I think they've done what they wanted to achieve. Now, I don't know if the sales are going to meet expectations, but if anything, in the segment with other models like the HR-V and the Crosstrek and other such compact-ish, compact, subcompact, it's called jumble. It's all jumbled together at this point. But this definitely has come out of the shadow of the Rogue and should be able to stand on its own, whereas the Qashqai and the Kicks could not previously. So in the following video, we're going to do the usual recipe, which is a couple of laps around the new 2025 Kicks, and then we're going to take it for a drive. So please, hang in there. Okay, friend, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I've been staring at the Kicks for about a solid minute now before starting the video, and yes, the audio is going to be a little bit weird because my equipment has failed, unfortunately, but I am absolutely loving everything that Nissan has done visually on the new 2025 Kicks. It looks beefier, it's chunkier, it's got more attitude. It really, really works. I mean, thanks to the new CMF-B segment platform, this thing is wider, longer, taller, more ground clearance. It finally has presence that the previous Kicks pretty much did not have. And the design decisions. I mean, when I saw the first pictures of this, I was like, what are they doing with these teary whatever headlights? But it really, really works. And the nose is not entirely flat, but it almost is, really giving that SUV essence that I guess is what consumers still really, really want today. Gotta dig the 19-inch wheels, 3 spokes too. What else? Oh yeah, this is really impressive too. This is a parametric design that is inspired by what else but Kicks, shoes. And it's really nice. You actually have some on the front chin as well. And I think my favorite angle or favorite shot is from the back. Look, you got straight lines now. It's like angles are back. I love the whole work, the whole kind of surround, and like this, I don't know, design element. Physically, Nissan has killed it out of the park with the new Kicks. Yeah, obviously this is an SR all-wheel drive, so it's the top trim. Speaking of trims, $27,199 for the base S front-wheel drive. An extra $2,000 will give you all-wheel drive. So $29,200 for a base all-wheel drive Kicks. That's value. I'm going to put it that way. You get a standard 12.3-inch touchscreen display and a few other things. So that works. Relatively inexpensive in this segment compared to the competition. But this, as I just pointed out, is an SR. So you're looking at $34,899. So strategically positioned to not overlap too much with the Rogue. And they've done that by not including a number of features, no power hatch, no power seats, and a few other things. But even so, I really, really like what you see, or what I see, or what we see. Trunk thing, the trunk situation is kind of interesting because during the presentation, Nissan said 849.5 liters, largest trunk in its category with the front-wheel drive. But then when you go to all-wheel drive, it drops to 676 liters, which is it's a massive drop. And I don't know if that includes, the storage beneath the floor, but even so, if this is 676, it's still pretty damn good. I mean, the width is awesome. The depth is easy to work with. The load height is really nice too. I have nothing negative to say, whether it's the smaller or the bigger front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, whatnot. Getting into the rear seats, it's actually quite easy. Look at the roofline. It's actually very square and horizontal. Good size cutout at the bottom too. Really works. Zero gravity seats front and back, which is a nice touch. And it's actually really comfortable in here. This is not my driving position, admittedly, but there's still a fair amount of legroom. You can squeeze maybe 2.5 across in the back, but the seats are quite comfortable. I have to say, very, very comfortable. If I have to find a problem with this, maybe we'd want the door to open up a few extra degrees, but maybe not. Fit finish overall is very nice. I have nothing negative to say when it comes to that. I mean, even the contrast stitching is nice. All the windows, auto up, down. Some manufacturers could take notes from that. I was saying no power seats, but zero gravity seats are still quite comfortable, supportive, very nice. I've got nothing negative to say here. Oh, twin 12.3-inch screen. So once you step into the SV, which I believe is the second trim, you get both as opposed to analog gauges in the base S. Let's start it up, and while it boots up, it's not even faux carbon fiber, it's just like the weave, but it's actually padded. It's quite nice. I like how Nissan was open about that, saying, yeah, we know it's not carbon fiber, but we made it nice. Let's just go with the steering wheel. Always nice Nissan steering wheels, flat bottom, decent sized spokes, good grip, configurable IP, and there's your 12.3-inch touchscreen display. There's a thing about the font or the graphics for Nissan. Somehow it makes it look older than it actually is. Maybe it's just me. I'm gonna say it's just me. Volume knob, that's nice. Camera shortcut. This haptic pad though, in the SR, I'm not a big fan of it. You have to watch what you're doing. Not entirely intuitive, not great. Drive modes right here, so let's go. Come on. Oh, I thought they'd appear there. Why do I have to be in drive? Today I learned. Okay, I don't know why they're not appearing. Apologies. First drive, right? Storage is good. Storage is good. Storage is good. Visibility is actually quite nice. I mean, you can see how wide the base there, the pillar is with the cap. But because the screens are set very low but because the mirrors are so far off the door, which is a nice touch, you have a huge opening there. A very nice place to be. I have really nothing negative to say. A panoramic sunroof for those for whom that matters. And it keeps on being good as we drive. So let's do that now. One thing hasn't changed, Xtronic CVT. Did you hear that? That was front wheel spin, which is kind of interesting because Nissan told us that the new all-wheel drive system, which is the big piece of news other than the new platform and the more powerful engine and the bigger dimension, so it's all new, as I said. Point is that all-wheel drive is now finally available with the Kicks, which was probably the main reason why it never picked up probably as much as it should have. I'm speaking of the first generation, of course. The one thing specific about the all-wheel drive system is that it's a quicker reacting setup. So it doesn't need to detect front wheel spin before the rear wheels kick in. In fact, it's just throttle based. So if you accelerate harder, then up to 50% of the power is sent to the rear. But just now, there was some wheel spin and nothing much happened with the rear. That's very interesting. I love discovering things like that because otherwise it would never happen here in California where, what's snow, what's ice, it never happens, at least not in the lowlands. Okay, so I mentioned the new platform, so you also get a new engine. Well, actually, it's the Sentra's 2-liter engine, 141 horsepower, 140 pound-feet of torque, which are unbelievably necessary. And I'm going to put it this way. I mean, yes, it's a step up from the previous 1.6, which produced, if memory serves, 122 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. But with all-wheel drive, bigger dimensions, more equipment, this thing is much, much heavier. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's much, much heavier than the previous model. meaning that performance-wise, no vast improvement. Though I have to say, fuel consumption so far is hovering around the 8 liters per 100 kilometers in mixed driving. Right now we're in a half canyon between the mountains, and you know, I'd say it's pretty average. Around 8 liters, you can expect that, and that's basically the rating for mixed driving. With the weight, and this is interesting too, steering feels like it's more connected, if not heavier, meaning slightly less dialed in assistance. It's dynamically speaking, this thing actually drives much better than the previous one. It's got, I go so far as to say that it's more entertaining to drive than the Rogue. And that probably has to do with the new platform, which is a heck of a lot stiffer. And another thing that happens when you get all-wheel drive is that you move on to a multi-link rear suspension as opposed to a torsion beam. Typically speaking, for this category of vehicle, the difference between a multi-link setup and a rear torsion, you won't feel it unless you're driving at 9.5 tenths. And I concur that I can't really feel the difference with this and a torsion beam. But what I can tell you is the ride quality, again thanks to the structure. Not convinced it has anything to do with the rear multi-link setup. It's comfortable. It responds well to body movements. You can, now let's understand each other, you don't toss it in a curve or something like that, but when you want to drive in a spirited manner, the Kicks responds very, very well. And now as I'm going downhill towards the construction zone, brake pedal feel is nice, travel is limited, the response is linear. I mean, all in all, in its segment, and again, compared to the HR-V, CX-30 might be a little bit more entertaining to drive. I'm talking about the naturally aspirated 2.5, not the turbo version. And the Taos, which is actually nice, and it should be even nicer with the 8-speed automatic transmission for 2025, which brings me to the Xtronic CVT, the only available transmission with the Kicks. No matter what automakers do and programmers and engineers do, it's still a CVT. But all in all, as I've said in the past, that I've given up on the war against CVTs, this one works just fine. For 99% of all applications and drivers, it is exactly what they want out of a transmission. It sends the power seamlessly or nearly to all the drive wheels. I think I've said my piece. It's one of the nicer ones in the segment. The Trax is a really attractive model too, but I think Nissan really nailed it. The packaging, the styling, the drive. I think the bottom line is that the new Kicks is in search of a little bit more power. Perhaps by 2026, when Nissan begins introducing more ePower, aka electrified powertrains, we might get a version that will be a little bit more efficient and a little bit more powerful, more than likely more expensive to boot. But this is the Kicks that the North American market needs, wants, and I predict that there will be very many of them on the roads in the coming year.